Hi everyone, so today's video is going to be how to plan a trip. I've been wanting to make this video for such a long time. I feel like a lot of these things that I'm going to say in this video to me is quite obvious, but I've learnt recently actually planning a holiday and doing all these sorts of things you have to do is actually not quite obvious to some people. And a lot of people genuinely just have no idea. I know that sounds really rude saying it like that. This process can be very daunting and stressful for a lot of people, whereas I find it very fun and just exciting to research holidays and research flights and things to do. So don't forget to subscribe before you continue. Before I get into the video, I just want to mention that I have joined Patreon. People can donate a certain amount of money every month and help them out with their sort of creative content making. You only have to pay like $1 a month to help me. You can go all the way up to $20 a month at the moment. If you'd like to contribute, please see the link below. Anyway, let's get into the video. I've got my cup of tea. I don't know why, because it's really warm. First I want to talk about, where would you like to go? What do you want from your holiday? What are the sort of things that you want to see? What sort of holiday do you want to go on? And you also need to think about what time of the year you're going, the seasons, weather. Do you want a holiday that's relaxing, sightseeing, laying on the beach, doing nothing all day? So really you need to think about what sort of holiday you want to go on. I think a lot of people have an idea of like what they want to do, but they don't really know how to execute it. What I like to do, I want to go on a holiday somewhere, but I just don't really know what sort of a holiday I want to go on. I usually just go on Pinterest or Google and just Google random things. If you're wanting to go on like a foodie tour, Google best places for food in Asia, if it was in Asia or something like that, best places to go skiing in such and such a place. You just need to like search things like that, and then different recommendations will come up from other people and like pictures will come up, and that's how I draw my inspiration if I'm stuck on sort of knowing where to go, or if I have an idea but I don't really know where that activity tends to be the best place to do it, sort of thing, if you know what I'm saying. Also, another tip I have for you is, say for example, I recently was looking at India, and I've always really wanted to go there, but I sort of didn't really know where you would go in India. I just know I want to go there, but I'm just like, well, where do I start? It's a huge, ginormous country. Go on tour websites and see where they go on their tours. So for example, Top Deck, Contiki, Intrepid, there's tons of other companies that do tours. They actually show you where they're obviously going on their tour. So then if you see all these different names of places to go, I would just Google them and see if they interest you. So then you've got a little list of places that you'd really like to go, and you can form your own sort of little tour, and you don't necessarily have to take a tour. The next thing I want to talk about is your budget. You may have a strict budget and you may just have to pick somewhere that's within your budget, or you can decide where you would like to go and set yourself a goal that you can reach. For example, say if you want to stay in the Maldives on some bungalow in the middle of the water and you know it's going to be 10 grand or something like that. If you really want something, you will set yourself a goal and you'll work towards it and you'll make it happen. If you are within a tight budget, you really have to research the cost of everything. What I'm going to go over now is what you'd have to research. Write down the cost of everything in like a little notebook, note it all down and make sure it's within your budget, because you can't just pick somewhere and be like, yeah, I'm going to do it on a budget, but you're going to eat at the hotel or the Airbnb, wherever you're staying. I'm going to walk everywhere. I'm not going to go see expensive attractions. I'm just going to do it on a real budget. But then you realise to fly there it's really expensive, or the hotels are really expensive anyway, and all these things are expensive anyway, no matter how cheap you do it. So you really have to research what's the cost of living in that city, or what that city is worth in a way, before you plan to go there. For example, flying to Paris can be a really cheap flight there. It can be only 50 quid, but it's an expensive city to live in or to stay in. The next thing you want to think about is your flights, or buses, trains, whatever your transportation to that place or holiday or whatever it is. First thing I like to do is go onto Skyscanner. The best thing to do is be flexible with your dates. People always say this because the price can change drastically on different days. So what I always do is find out the best days to travel, and then I would book my time off work, and once that's approved I would then book those flights. What you need to do is go into Skyscanner, put your details in, where you're flying from to where you want to go. You want to select it so it says whole month. Just pick a month of what you think will be best for your holiday. It will show you all the different prices for each day, and then you just have to play around, see what's best, because obviously it'll show you in green what ones are the cheapest. And once you found a great deal, I would go onto the airline's direct website and see if I can see it for the exact same price, and then usually I will just book directly through the website. If you're not flying but you are catching a bus or a train, another great app I like to use, a website, is Go Euro. It compares the flight, the train and the bus. That's a good thing to do as well when you want to see if it's cheaper to get a bus or a train. That's what I usually use it for. But then it's also good to use it for the flight as well, because sometimes it's the same amount of money or even cheaper just to fly up. If you don't know where to go on your holiday, another fun thing to do is on Skyscanner is to put the destination as everywhere, and then it will show you all the different places in the world, right from cheapest to most expensive. Next is accommodation. There's so many different options nowadays when it comes to accommodation. I use 3 different types mostly. Airbnb, my most used source of accommodation, and then also a hostel or hotel. I would really like to try other sources of accommodation in future. Like I really want to try house sitting and all that sort of thing, or house swap or something like that. Those are also other options, but I don't have any experience with those, unfortunately. First I want to talk about is a good old-fashioned hotel. For hotels, I use booking.com. I don't normally book hotels. I usually use Airbnb because it is a lot cheaper most of the time. I usually book Airbnb because they will have like a kitchen where you can cook your own food. And I think that's really important because for me, whenever I go on a holiday somewhere, I don't want to be eating out every single meal. Yeah, I want to eat and drink out a lot, but I don't want to be eating out every single meal because it becomes expensive and it's tiring and it's just really unhealthy. And Airbnb is also really great because there's just a lot more facilities because it is usually someone's home or apartment or something like that. So you've got the option of having a washing machine and all that sort of thing. So say if you were traveling out for a lot longer, maybe over a week, it's just better to have a washing machine. What I wanted to mention was that sometimes it's good to shop around when it comes to Airbnb and hotels because you don't always necessarily get a good deal on Airbnb. Next month I'm going to Dubrovnik and we've already booked our accommodation, and when I went to book the accommodation a few months ago, I went to look on Airbnb, and in the area that we were wanting to stay in only had like 1 or 2 Airbnbs and they were just really expensive, and I was like, no, I'm not going to pay that. So I managed to find one that was a lot cheaper on booking.com, which I think they're just serviced apartments. I think it's like a studio and a balcony. So I ended up getting a way better deal by doing that instead of going on Airbnb. So that's why it's always good to sort of shop around on different websites and different sort of forms of accommodation. I am just going with one of my friends, so we could have stayed in a hostel as well, but I think in the end it would have just been the same amount of money to stay in a hostel. You can find absolutely amazing hostels nowadays. Pretty much they're like a hotel, but they've just got a room that's got more people in it that you share it with. I'm going to give you my tips on how I book accommodation for a holiday. The most important thing to me is location, location, location. Being in a good location is the most important thing I feel like when it comes to accommodation, besides obviously the place being nice and affordable and clean. The better location, the less money you're spending on transport. And it's less stressful having to figure out a bus timetable or a train timetable or a train ticket or paying for the train ticket and all that sort of thing. You just want to make sure that you're close to the things that you really want to see. If you're really wanting to explore the sites in a city, just make sure you're in that area. If you're really wanting to get a bit more of a local experience, you probably want to stay a bit more out of the way of where the tourists normally stay. So you just really have to think about what you're interested in and where you want to stay. First thing I do when I'm booking accommodation is click on the map option. The next most important things for me are a good rating and a good price. I will always put the rating between 7.5 and 10. No matter what the price is, that's what I'll always do next. Also with Airbnb, if you have picked somewhere, make sure you click book. You won't obviously pay for it straight away because then it shows you what other charges come into the total amount. There will always be a service charge for Airbnb themselves. Some places also charge a cleaning fee and a few other fees. Once I've gone through a bunch of different listings of places I'd like to stay, I create a wish list on whatever website I'm using and save all those listings. Once I've got a bunch of listings that I'm happy with, I go through all of them and open them all up on my computer. So I've got all different tabs, depending on how many there are. And then I go and have a closer look at them. And then I go through all of them and I think about what I really want from my accommodation, the location, the best value for money. I look at all those things a lot more closely. Get rid of the ones you don't want. You sort of narrow it down as you go along to, a couple. Sometimes you can get Airbnbs that don't even have a kettle, and say that tea is very important to you or coffee and that you'd really would like a kettle. So you need to just look at these things. They're people's homes and not a hotel. Also, you really want to look at the reviews on these places as well, because I think sometimes we just look at the stars or the ratings and just think, oh yeah, it's got a good rating, it's a good price, I like the look of it. people will give you a clue as to what to expect a bit more, because sometimes the pictures don't always portray really what it's going to look like. But then also you need to keep a lookout for those people that just whinge about absolutely nothing. Some people go on about like, oh, I was kept up all night because it was so noisy and blah blah blah, and there was a party going on next door. It's like, well, that person that owns Airbnb can't help that. So say you have picked somewhere and you've booked it. First thing I do is copy and paste the address, and I go into Google Maps and I search it, and then what I do is I star it, or I do it like I call it something. So say Airbnb, hotel, da da da, home, whatever, so that when you zoom out on the map you can see where it is in location to what other things you want to see. So when you're on holiday, we can look at our map and we can see where we are, because we're like the blue dot on the GPS, and then we can also see where our Airbnb is, and you can just follow the map. And you know how to get back home really easily, instead of thinking, oh no, where is my Airbnb, and then having to get the address out and type it in and then get it up on the maps, and then it's just a lot more hassle. It's much better to be all planned and saved in there, all ready to go, especially maybe if you're in an awkward situation. You might need to find home very quickly, because obviously you don't want to draw attention to yourself if you're like, oh, what am I doing? No. Next is transport. I talk with my hands a lot. The first thing you need to do is research how you're going to get from the airport or train station to your accommodation and how much it's going to cost. I use Google Maps to see like the distances and like what sort of transport you can use to get to and from the accommodation to the airport. I also go on forums as well to see sort of what the most popular, cheapest accommodation is as well, because I think sometimes you're a bit like, is it cheaper and easier just to get a taxi, or is public transport really good to get there, you know what I'm saying? Or it might be the case that public transport takes frickin' ages and you've got to catch 50 different buses, even though it's cheaper, but it may take you a lot of hassle. You may as well get a taxi. So you just need to Google around and see what's going to be the best option for you. And then you also want to look at how you're going to get to and from places that you really want to see in the location that you're in. So say if you're going to go see the Eiffel Tower in Paris, you need to calculate how you're going to get there from your accommodation. It might be easy to get the Metrolink. You may be able to get a taxi if you're rich. You might just want to walk. Say if it's an hour walk, but you think, you know what, I'm going to see a ton of stuff along the way. It might be just better for me to walk and explore the whole way. Transport might be very expensive in that city, so you might just be better off walking. Another option, which I haven't really touched on, is renting a car. I've actually just recently done a video on this as well, so I'll link it somewhere up here. Okay, so one of the last things I'd like to talk about is tours, day trips, attractions, and activities. Like I said before, what I usually do if I'm looking to do something in a city and I don't really know what to do, I just Google top things to do in such and such city, and just sort of see what takes my fancy. And also don't necessarily fall into that trap of I have to go here and do this to tick it off my list, or that's the thing to do. Really think about what you really want to do on your holiday as well. Once I've picked a few things, I will write a list in a handy little notebook, or I will make notes on my computer of where I would like to go and what I would like to do. And then I would go onto Google Maps and do the same thing I did with my accommodation, and I would actually star all the places that I want to go to. So I'll search all the places and I'll star them. So that when you look at the map of where you're going, you've got all these different stars, and then the accommodation one will be a different colour so that that'll stand out. And then you can also sort of see where everything is in comparison to your accommodation. So just like to get as much as possible on there, so that when the time comes, I've got all the options in front of me. I don't have to research on the go. I don't have to be Googling things out in the middle of where all the tourists are and all the pickpocketers are. It's all there ready to go. Just get an iPhone and be like, oh, yep, we can go such and such church now because it's just over there and I can feel it on my map. This is also a great thing to do when you're out and about and you're looking for somewhere to eat as well. I also tag up all the different places that I want to go and eat and drink and all that sort of thing. With regards to tours and day trips and stuff like that, I just Google day trips from here or whatever. My friend and I, Johanna, are going to Dubrovnik next month, and I really wanted to go to Mostar, I can't really say it. It's a little town in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I really wanted to go to this place, and I knew that you could do day trips there, so just search day trips, da-da-da-da-da. And because it's in a whole different country, it's like quite an expedition to get there. If you want to see somewhere like this, you need to go on the tour, because say if we wanted to do this trip on our own and go there for a day, it would be impossible for us to get there for the day, because unless we rented a car maybe. Because to get public transport there, it just wouldn't work. There's like 5 different buses and trains that you'd have to catch. So say if you do want to go somewhere, you really need to check to see, will you be better off doing it on your own, or will it just be easier and probably the same amount of money doing it on a tour? It really just comes down to you and what's important to you, and just make sure you do your research. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Make sure you stay tuned for more videos. Make sure you go on my Patreon page and please support me. It will help me out a lot. Bye! Ooh, bingo wings.